Can get started. Welcome everybody to another session of Talking Books with Kat, and today we are joined by Kgosi, and we are going to be having a bookish question and answer to get to know him. Hi Kgosi, I hope you are good. Kindly please introduce yourself to the viewers.
Thank you to everybody that's joined us tonight. So my name is actually Atlechang, but when I joined TikTok, I created my account Kgosi Bookshelf because that's one part of my surname. And so people who know me from this platform call me Kgosi, and I've accepted it. So you can also call me Kgosi. I am currently in Johannesburg. This is where I grew up. I could say third generation Johannesburg dweller. And I really enjoy reading books. I really enjoy connecting and, discovering narratives. And this is where this platform has come from. I've been reading from a very young age, but it was always in ebbs and flows. I read a lot in primary school, then not so much in high school, then stopped for a bit in varsity. And it's only been these past couple of years where I've really gotten into it. And so, this platform is really all about creating connections with other readers. And I'll talk more about it as we go along. But in a nutshell, this is me. I like keeping fit as well. And reading, running, swimming, essentially that is my pastimes. Those are my pastimes.
Lovely. So, do you still remember the first book that you read that turned you into a reader? Just kindly walk us through that.
I can't say I remember the first book that I read. I do know that in grade 3 I was reading a lot of books, and until my teacher said, I must reduce my pace with getting through the books. But I think the one book that really, really got me into reading was The Winner Stands Alone by Paulo Coelho. This is from the author of The Alchemist. So I read a lot of his books before I read The Alchemist. And this book, what grabbed me about it and what kept me engaged was how it was set during the Cannes Film Festival, and was about this man who was trying to, win the attention back of his ex-wife, was it ex-girlfriend? And so this woman was part of the Cannes Inner Circle, the Cannes Film Festival Inner Circle. I think she was an actress. And he went about killing people during the Cannes Film Festival to get her attention. It grabbed me because this was a page turner of a book. I couldn't put it down. And from then on, I wanted to know more of the author's work. And so the journey began.
It sounds like an interesting read. What did you say the title?
Stands Alone by Paulo Coelho, from the author of The Alchemist.
Okay, I will check it out. So what are you currently reading at the moment?
What am I currently reading? So now the book is, I've left it there inside my work bag. It is a book by I think it's Sanele, and he's an indie author. This is his debut piece of work. And so essentially it's a fiction book, but it's about money lessons. And so I'm still currently on chapter 1, 2, and he is in the book, the main character is basically learning about the concept of money, that actually money doesn't really exist in the form that we look at it, and it's something that has been established by government. So it's like, how can I put this? It's an idea that we believe in, basically, but the actual money and the printed paper, it's actually quite worthless. It's worth the value that we put behind it. That's what I have learned so far.
Sounds interesting. I also want to know more about this money, because what do you mean? It's not what we think it is. We need a review. When you're done, we need a review.
You know what? I think I need to do a chapter by chapter review. It's just that I've been really busy and not reading at the moment. But I think it's a really interesting book in the sense that I am not a person that enjoy that enjoys self-help non-fiction books. However, this one, because it's set as a fiction book, but there are so many lessons that come through it, and there's so much history. You can really see that the author put a lot of research into building his characters and building the story. So I'm very interested to know where the story ends, because it's set in the context of a young entrepreneur in like Durban townships who are set to be the next, the next visionary in terms of innovator and creator. Then somehow his life takes a downfall, and now he's currently an Uber driver and drowning in debt, trying to work his way out of his situation. And he meets an old man that he transported on Uber from the Durban airport back to his house, and then he sees what this man has, and so this man kind of mentors him, and
Okay.
let's see where the story goes. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward.
it sounds very interesting. It really does. Welcome to everybody who just joined. I hope you're good. We are having a Q&A session. So back to what you're reading. What immediately turns you off in a book when you're reading it that you could say this?
Oh, I think spelling and grammar mistakes,
Mhm.
that really, really puts me off. And sometimes I understand, sometimes the authors are indie authors, so they are the writer, and then they're also the editor, and then they're also the marketer of their book. So when you're reading your piece of work over and over again, you sort of don't see some things. You need an extra pair of eyes to go over some things. I saw it when I was doing my master's. Sometimes I'd have to ask somebody else to read it because I just couldn't pick up anything anymore. So it's that. And then also, I think a predictable storyline. There was a phase where I would pick up a book by a South African author, and they would be about sugar daddies. And
Yeah.
like, we've done that story so many times. Unless there's a twist that changes, I don't want to. I don't want to read about that again. Um, yeah, I think for now, those off the top of my head, those are, yeah, the two things that really put me off.
Paul is asking what's the name of the book? I think it's
I
the one you're
actually want to
currently
get it.
reading.
Once,
Okay,
I'm
no problem.
I'm getting it. I swear never get it. See, Tutu, yeah. Here is the name. This is Unmasking Debt, A Journey
Okay.
from Chaos to Purpose. This is by Swazi N. So this was a book that I was talking about money and getting out of debt. It's not a self-help book. It's a fiction book. And then the other book that I've been trying to get through the past couple of months is Dreams in a Quantum. This is by Thokozani Christopher Siqwebu. So both of these books were sent to me by the authors. They are indie authors, and I really like receiving books from indie authors because it's untapped voices that we don't know about. And so here, this one is about a rural girl who comes to the city to make it through the taxi industry. Women in the taxi industry is not something that we often are exposed to, and yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And these authors I met through TikTok. So they found my account and they wanted to send me their books. There's others authors who've done that. I still need to get through their book.
Yeah, and give the reviews. So how do you select your next read?
So every month I've got a book club, the Kgosi Readers Book Club from TikTok. We created a WhatsApp group, and then we meet every month on the second Sunday of the month on Google Meets. And
Mm-hmm.
so for 2025, we selected books towards the end of 2024. So that's one way. I need to read the book club book because I want to engage with my book club members. And the way I try to do it is that every month somebody from the book club needs to host the session because they've got a different way of hosting the discussion. This past month, we were talking about Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. And our discussions are saved on my YouTube page. So that's one way I decide how to pick a book. And then I've got another physical book club, which I've been part of for years. Somebody from the group selects a book. That's how I select. And then sometimes, I also have a slot on 5FM. So when I go to the radio to talk about the books that we should be reading for the month, depending on the theme, I need to have read the books. And then the last part, I just sometimes feel like a book calls. It really isn't a system. I just sometimes look at the cover and I'm like, I think this will be a good book. Sometimes, depending on the author, like I know if I pick up a book by Nick Mhlongo, I'm going to enjoy it. Um, so yeah, that is how I choose a book. Somebody says, "Oh, my network is not so great today." I thought they said the network is not so great.
Okay, no problem. So what kind of genres do you normally read?
I started with like general fiction when I'm talking about Paulo Coelho, but now since I launched this page and I really want to promote African authors and African narratives, I tend to read a lot of African fiction. So these are books by Black authors, by POC authors, and authors living in the diaspora. Yeah, that's my focus for now. I really enjoy fiction books, but I don't know what happened since I turned 30. How old am I? 32, 31. I
Yeah.
started reading a lot of nonfiction, but it wasn't intentional. Like I just pick up a book and then it happened to be nonfiction. And then I would enjoy it. Then I'd pick up another one. There's another author who sent me his book and it was called These Potatoes Look Like Humans. And it was about the potato boycott of the 1950s. That was a piece. Yeah, I think I really enjoy reading our stories because if we don't, then who is going to read them?
Yeah. So let's talk about the Kgosi Bookshelf Club. What inspired you to start the book club? Did you start it or did somebody else start it? If it's you, what inspired you to start it and how did you come up with the name and everything?
Just to read and then post on my Instagram to say, this is what I'm currently reading, these are my thoughts. But I noticed that I wouldn't get a lot of like the people that were following me on my personal account were not like readers, so they wouldn't engage on the content. So I've always longed for a community where we can talk about the books that I read, not necessarily the most popular books that are always, trending, but again, African literature books that I find interesting. And so one day I asked on Instagram if people would be interested in buying secondhand books, and the response was quite good. And so I rebranded my personal page and I called it the Kgosi Bookshelf because Kgosi is the last part of my surname. And well, bookshelf, you grab books
Yeah.
from the bookshelf.
Yes.
So the first 3 months, I would make a catalog. I'd like look at what books I've already read, make a catalog, distribute it through my WhatsApp community. And then I started hearing that TikTok is really popping off on Book Talk. So I created an account on TikTok and yeah, it really blew up. I got to meet so many people. And then I opened my online bookshop on the website. And then somebody one day left a comment on one of my TikTok and said, can we have a book club? And so I paused it because I was still busy with my master's at that time. But towards the end of 2023, I was like, okay, now I think I have capacity to start a book club. And so I created a TikTok and said, I'm opening a book club. If you're keen to join, we're going to meet on WhatsApp. And we met. Our first meeting was 2023 December, and we were discussing homegoing. And I chose homegoing because I know it's one of the popular books among within the African literature space. And so from then on, we had our first online meeting, and 20 meetings after, we're still going on.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So is the book club open for everybody, and can anybody and everybody just join? What are the requirements to join the book club?
There are no requirements. It's free and open to anybody to join on WhatsApp. Um, yeah, all you need to do is get the book of the month and then join us online and we discuss. There really is no limitation to who can join because we've got members from all around the world, so we can't meet, in person. It would be nice to, but because we've got people from the UK, we've had people from Brazil, it's just better to discuss. So it's open to anybody who wants to join.
Lovely. So you did mention something about secondhand books. So do you like sell them or something? And where can we check them out if we need to read? Because books are expensive, and
Books are very expensive.
secondhand books are actually cheaper. So
Yeah.
how can we get hold of those books?
So I update my catalog every month. It's on www.kgosibookshelf.com. It's also a link in my bio. It's the first link that directs you to my website, which is an online bookstore. And there are affordable, new and pre-loved books that you can add to your library.
Lovely. We'll check it out. So if you need pre-loved books, just check out the link on Kgosi's bio. You'll find
And
them.
if you just feel like getting new books, look at my link in my bio, click on it, explore my website. I really try when I'm sourcing books to get like interesting, rare books from lesser known authors. I mean, there are still like popular books that I have, but I really try, especially within the African literature. I recently added books from our native languages. So I think I've got books in Zulu, I've got books in Sesotho and Setswana as well.
Lovely. Okay, let's go back to your reading journey. So what's one thing you wish to see more in books?
Huh, interesting. I really would like books that tackle unconventional narratives. How I say this is because when it was during Pride Month in June, I wanted to read queer books, but I picked up God's Little Children Are Broken Little Things, and I read the first short story, and again, it was about two men who wanted to be in a relationship or sort of, but it didn't work out. And through all of the stories and the movies and the series I've seen, that's always the case. So I really want to see the opposite, like actual queer relationships that are functional and that prevail and that are a success. And then I would also like more Afrofuturism, sci-fi, African stories. I don't think we have a lot of that. I'm not a person that reads a lot of what is this, fantasy and sci-fi, but I think if there was an Afrofuturism twist on it, I would I would like to read that. And then also stories about different parts of South Africa that we don't know about. There is a book that I have by a travel author, and he writes about his adventures in different parts of South Africa. And he writes about those towns that you see on the map and you don't think anybody lives there, but he goes there, explores the town, writes about his experiences, how the town is different from other places. And so I really would like to read more fiction, more well-written books as well. Like,
I understand you.
I want South Africans to get on a level where they're writing like the Nigerians. Like,
Mm.
if we could get there, I'd be very, very happy.
Yeah, we'll try. um, Kgosi is saying, have you read Pumza Shabangu's books? And she's the first person that popped into my mind when you mentioned queer books. And another person who writes that it's Lizole, but I'm not sure if you read ebooks. She's not published though, but she also writes queer stories. So maybe check out Pumza Shabang. You will
So
love her.
I have read Pumza. We've invited her to our book club.
Mhm.
We read, what is that first book about the man?
Unspoken truth.
Yes. So I saw a TikTok from Bitumelo, and she was talking about unspoken truth. And I was like, okay, I've never read anything like that.
Mm.
Bisexual men are never really written about. And so I was like, I need to get this book. You asked if I read ebooks. I normally don't, but for Unspoken Truth, I signed up to Amazon so I could get the ebook because the physical copy was so scarce. It was going to take weeks for me to get it. I wanted to start reading that book now.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed Unspoken Truth. From there, I reached out to Pumza. We had always been following each other, but never really communicating. And then I
Mm.
reached out to her. I told my book club about the book, and I was like, we're reading this book. And then we invited her to our book club session. I think it was the first time we actually had an author in person. And she told us about her book, her writing journey, and where she wants to go, the challenges that she faces. So I have another one. I think it's called String My Heart, but
From Pumza.
from Pumza. So she explained that
It's
her,
it's from my pain. I
yes,
think so.
from my pain. So she
Yeah.
explained that like the timeline of her books. So I'm really happy that I started with Unspoken Truth because I think that is the first one from her series. And then I think the second one was Ravaged Soul or something. It's got the heart, it's got a pink cover, it's got
Yeah.
the heart on it. So that's the next one that I wanted to read. So yes, I have read Pumza, and you mentioned another author. You said she only writes in ebooks. Yeah, I would love to get her ebooks.
Um, she's not published, so I'm not sure how you're gonna get them, but I will reach out to her and tell her to reach out to you. And
Okay.
Kosi is saying there's also Nongebo, but I'm not sure. I don't know her, but yeah, she says she also writes genuine queer stories, but she's also not published. She has a series in PDF. So yeah.
Okay. I would like to get that series in PDF. You've got another comment from Tumelo, but I think I'm not sure if this thought is complete.
Yeah, I thought she was going to put another message, so I was just waiting. But she's saying it's so frustrating when readers say they want stories we have written, but because of somehow, I'm not sure if she's going to finish or what. Dumelo, please finish your comment. So what makes a character real to you?
I think when you're almost like when you can first of all when you can relate to the character, and when you can believe that this character is a real person, right? And you can imagine them in the flesh. And after you've read the book, you still think about this character. But I think you can only get to that point when you make the character a real person by developing them, right? So we get their thoughts. What are they going through? Make it a flawed character. Can't have a perfect person on paper because a perfect person doesn't exist. So even if they are a really good person, they need to have bad traits, getting to the inner thoughts and how they interact with other people. I think those are the sort of like traits that make you think about a character even after you've stopped reading the book. I mean, there's sometimes books that you go through and then you don't even remember a character. You remember what they did, but you don't really remember their name,
Yeah,
you know?
they don't quite stick into your mind. You're just like, okay, another book.
When you
Um,
say that, you remind me, when you ask this question, you remind me of, Vivek from Vivek Oji. This is a book by Akwekwe Emezi, Out the Death of Vivek Oji. And sometimes, because we were in sort of like Vivek's brain and how Vivek thought and what Vivek went through leading
mm,
up to the funeral, you form an attachment with this fictional character. And so
mm,
even after you close the book, you wonder like what happens to this
yeah,
character, to this
yeah,
character.
yeah, I understand you. Somebody's asking, are y'all book clubbing? We are having a Q&A session. So for those who just joined, we are having a Q&A session with Kgosi. And yeah, stick around and find out more about books. And do not forget to pre-order my coming book, A Love That Remains. My website is on my bio and also my other books. So just check them out there. So do you prefer slow burn or fast-paced books and why?
I think, I prefer a slow burn. I think because it takes time to develop, and in that development, the world is being set, the characters are being developed, you're getting to know more about the interactions. Yo, there was this other book that I had to put down because it was going too quickly. Like in 3 sentences, too many things were happening.
Yeah.
And for me, if I'm gonna read a book like that, it needs to be during a time when I don't have a lot going on. Whereas with a slow burn, it's like, hey, but it mustn't be too slow. That's also another thing. In,
Yeah.
there needs to be a story, there needs to be a build up. There's a book we read for book club 2 months ago called How the One Armed Sister Sweeps a House. That book doesn't really have a plot, you know. It's quite thick, but they are it's like different perspectives at a point in time. So you get to know what this character was going through when this one event happened, and then another character, and then another character. So there isn't really much of a story that I really struggled with. I enjoyed the writing. It was a beautiful Barbados, it was written in the Barbados dialect. We were reading about another country. I really enjoyed that. However, the actual story wasn't there. And for me, I really want to read a story. Like, take me on an adventure.
Yeah. Dumelo is saying it's so frustrating when readers say they want stories we have written, but because they somehow, where's the other message? They somehow skip over them because they are not aesthetically pleasing. I think she's referring to covers. Not sure.
I think she's referring to covers as well.
But then, which brings us to my next question. How much does a book cover or title influence your decision to read that book?
A title up here. If you've got an intriguing title that is obscure, doesn't make sense, is different, you've got my attention. How the one armed sister sweeps a house, I was like, what? What does this even mean? You know? So I started reading that, like, I started reading the book because of the title. Book cover, I'm not so. A book cover doesn't really influence me that much because I know that sometimes the authors don't decide on their book covers. The publisher takes the book, they send it off to a graphic designer. Graphic designer decides what they want to put on the cover. Say that in today's world where authors, well-known authors, published authors, self-publishing authors are fighting for shelf space. The more striking your book cover is, the better for you because it grabs the attention of the reader. Unless you've got the heavyweight, maybe your author name like Chimamanda, where people know your work. But if you want to catch a reader's attention there, they're standing in the bookshop, a striking cover, I think, doesn't hurt. But give me a good book title, and I'm
Yeah.
happy. Like, we need new names. When I
Mm.
found that book, I was like, what do you mean we need new names? And then I started reading it, and it made sense as I started reading the book. So for me, title is here, book cover is here.
Yeah, I understand you. Dumela is saying sometimes it's a person's taste. It's not a universal thing. Might not be considered pretty by another. But I think it will also help you market your book as an indie author. For example, I have published so far 5 books. And every time I mention all my book titles to people, everybody's like, oh, Married at 16. I would love to read that one. Everybody is intrigued by the Married at 16 title. And every time I mention my books to somebody, they always go for Married at 16. And I think it's the title that always draws in. They'll be like, okay, I want to know more. So I feel like sometimes, as much as you have your own taste, you also need to think about marketing and getting your book out there. As much as you want this, you also need to think of the readers, because they are the ones who have the books in their house, and they are the ones who will look at it and say, oh, I would like to buy this. Chimamanda can put a title on a black background and still sells. I mean, she has a big name, so we buy her name. We know her work. She she has that title already. So yeah, I hope that helps, Jumelo.
I hope it does. I just wanted to share some few book titles before we move on that I thought for me really grabbed me and kept me thinking about them. Like, Every Day is for the Thief, The
Mhm.
Girl Who Survived Her Mother. The author is not very happy with our book club, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And They Didn't Die. The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida had a very striking cover. That's one of the few books in my life where I said, I want this book because of the
The
cover.
cover.
The
Yeah.
cover was so pretty. I was like, this is the book that I want. Oh, and the last one, The Day I Fell Off My Island. So this one is by a Jamaican author, and I found it on what's that audio streaming service? No, I'm forgetting it now.
Audible
If,
or
no,
something.
no, no. Everend. So I was on Everend scrolling for something to read. And then I came across this book that says The Day I Fell Off My Island. And I was just thinking, how do you fall off an island, you know? And then
I would
I
like to know
started
more
looking.
about that.
Exactly. So book
Yeah.
cover, striking title,
Mm, mm,
half the job is done.
yeah. So, do you prefer first person or third person, and why?
I'm really gonna sound dumb, right? But I never know what is first person, what is third person, what's not. Me, I want
Yeah.
a, a story, good characters, whether it's written in first, second, third person. Me, I really don't care. We
Mm,
read a book right now, Open Water. It's written in second person. So I think that's not common because some people, when I was reading reviews, said that they struggled with second person because on every page it's saying you walked into a room, you saw her eyes, and then it reminded you of whatnot. So it was always
mm,
you. It was like an overview of, it was like a narrator talking about a person's life, you know. So I
mm,
wasn't mad at that. I really thought it was like different writing. What I didn't like was how over poetic it became, and for me, it just lost me. So
yeah.
yeah, if a book is too poetic and the author is really just trying to do gymnastics with their words, in I'm okay.
You can't.
No, I
Yeah. Yeah, I understand you. I understand you. So, what is your favorite series at the moment?
series as in TV.
No, book series.
Book series. Hmm. I don't actually think I have read a book series, and maybe like Kenny can in the comments hold me to this. But what I've noticed is that African fiction books don't normally come in a series. You know, I think Shlomo is one of the few ones that actually had a multi-book series. And then I also know that Titi had it with Nervous Conditions, and I think it was the Book of Not, and then the third book. So I
Yeah.
personally don't think I have read a book series from book one, book two, book three. I wanted to try it with The Handmaid's Tale, but I watched a few episodes of the TV series, so I don't know if I can go back and watch it. I think I read Kindred as well, struggled with it, but I don't know if that was a book series. So I personally haven't read a book series. If there are people in the comments who know of book series from our authors, please share them.
Some it's just maybe three parts. Those I know it's Yvonne Maposa, Busekile Kumaro, Irene Voltman, Simi Ramdat, and there's so many. I can't name them at the top of my head, but there's so many locals. I think maybe you just haven't been exposed to them. I mean, every day we just discovering a new author in the streets. So just check them out. And if you're interested in series, some write thrillers, some romance, things like that. Dumela is saying her heart is the first in a series. I think her heart is her book.
Okay. So now you've just cleared it up for me. I remember I actually have started reading a series. It's The Thing with Zola. So to answer you, The Thing with Zola
Mhm.
is my favorite series at the moment. I think that was for me my introduction into romance books, if it
Mhm.
is classified romance. But I really enjoyed The Thing with Zola.
Lovely. And everybody says they love that book. It makes me want to read it. What is it about?
It's about Zola, who comes from Germany, and she really thought she was going to make it in Germany. She studied hard, she got a scholarship in Germany, she did her university there. She met a man, a German man called Gunther, and then her visa couldn't be renewed. And so she had to come back to South Africa. When she gets to South Africa now, she went from living in Germany for 10 years. Now she's back at home. I think it was set in Vosloorus or Tembisa in the East Rand, a township in the East Rand. She needs to start applying for a job in the South African jobless economy. And
Yeah.
then she finds a job. However, the twist here is that she went for a job interview to meet somebody called Mbali. When she got there, her up. But this Mbali was actually a man who started talking to her, and she brushed him off because she thought he's just another man who wants to get her number. Kanti, it was the person who was going to interview her for a job. And then she gets another job at an events company, only
Mm-hmm.
to find that this Mbali is like a love, grew up with her boss, and they have like a love relationship or whatnot. But then she starts a relationship with Bali, and then there's like a love triangle thing going on. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what The Thing with Zola is about. I hope I'm doing it justice, but it was such a nice, easy, flowy, well written book.
I don't know why I thought the Zola is a he for some reason. I didn't know she was it's a
You're
she.
thinking of Zola 7. Zola 7.
That's another thing. So who is your autobi author?
Zakes Mda,
Mm-hmm.
Nikem Songo. Um, there's person who wrote Those Who Live in Cages. Her name is Terry Ann Adams. It's set in El Dorado Park. I picked up that book once and I couldn't put it down. I think she's also an autobi author. Who else is an autobi author? I think Chimamanda,
Mm-hmm.
Paulo Coelho. Um, yeah, those five. I also enjoyed Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. I think that is another one who's like, I will buy. Ooh. And another author from Nigeria is Damilare Kuku. She wrote Nearly all the men in Lagos are mad, and only big bums matter. No, only big bum matters. Tomorrow.
You
She
see how the title grabs you and you're like, what is going on here? I want to know what is
exactly,
going on because of just the title.
exactly.
Delight is saying, stay with me, crack me open.
Have you
I'm
read
like,
Stay With Me?
I haven't, but Delight has.
Oh, that is such
She's a
that is
huge
a
fan of
masterpiece.
Nigerian authors, and they write so beautifully. Oh my
Oh,
God, they
I
write
enjoy
so
the writing so
beautifully.
much.
They write so beautifully. What is one book you always recommend?
Mm, I'm scrolling through my Goodreads.
Mhm.
The Quiet Violence of Dreams by Casey Lodeka. I always recommend it. I think it's such a good book. It was written in 2001, and I think whatever was being talked about in that book is still happening in 2025. And I also think it inspired Yizo Yizo. I can see the rawness and the grittiness of it in Yizo
Mhm.
Yizo in that book. I absolutely enjoyed it. Another one is Chintu by Jennifer Nansumbuga Makumbi. If somebody didn't like that book, we're going to fight. Because that captured
Yeah.
Ugandan history so well. That was such a well written book. And it was her master's thesis. And I can picture her typing this book with a smile because that's how well it read. That book absorbed me.
Dumelo is saying, I must commend you for being such an open and brave reader who reads unknown authors.
I
And
think,
Delight,
oh, did
sorry. Delight saying, I'm yet
oh,
to read Kintu. I loved The First Woman.
I was supposed to read The First Woman for book club, but I actually didn't get to do it. Why did I? Why did? Oh, The First Woman in the UK is called A Girl is a Body of Water. See, when I say book titles will grab you, I knew I wanted to read that book from that. And just to go back with, you asked me who's an author by author. So Bargain Books sometimes has the sale where you can just buy like random books for like 50, 60 rand. Once upon a time, I picked up a book by Mohsin Hamid called Exit West. And in this book, it talks about immigrants who are looking for a better life, like immigrants from Syria who are looking
Mhm.
for a better life. But how they get to other countries is not by jumping borders or swimming across oceans. They just walk through a door and they find themselves in another country. And when I was reading, I was like, what? That was my first taste of magical realism. But I
Mhm.
thought it was really smart because when he did that, he was able to focus on the state of condition of the immigrant and make the story about that and less about how did they get to that country, less about the journey of getting to that country. So Mohsin Hamid is another author by author for me. Absolutely love his work. And then just to answer Dumelo, I think we need to read unknown authors. I think there are stories there that are untapped. And sometimes the publishers publish big names, but the story isn't there, you know?
Mm. Very true.
Yeah.
Marilyn saying, I enjoy your books, especially Married at 16. Everybody loves Married at 16. Everybody just ignores my other books and goes for that one. So what advice would you give an author as a reader?
Edit, 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 edit. And I think I don't know if South African indie authors are doing it, and you can tell me, Catherine, if you've got this. If you have beta readers, so I want to write something, but I want to write and then share it with my beta readers and get their thoughts on that. And I don't know if people already do this, but sometimes you read a story or I read a book and I'm very critical when I read. I'm a tough crowd to please. And I really, really feel like sometimes some books needed to be edited and challenged, because sometimes when I'm reading the story, I'm like, but like, where are we going with the story? One book
Mm,
that I can mention where I felt like, yes, it's written by a well known author who's respected and they've been published and whatnot, is Critical
mhm.
But Stable by Angela McCullough. I read that book and I was like they needed to be another level of interrogation here to say, okay, why is this character doing this? Why is it that? Because
Mm.
it was a flat book for me. So edit, 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 edit.
So to answer that, I think the problem is, maybe I should say, lack of knowledge, you know. Sometimes we get better readers, but some people are not better readers. They don't know how to read and give constructive feedback. They'll just read and be like, I liked it. I'm like, okay, but I need more than just I liked it. You understand? I need more. I need more. And then sometimes it's the kind of editors we work with. You know, somebody will be an editor, you pay them. They only do what they can and what they know. And then we think the book is perfect. And then somebody gets a hold of it and be like, this editor should have done more, this author should have done more. So I think that that's the thing, like we don't have much help as indie authors, you know. And I also feel that's why publishing companies choose safe stories, so that you don't have to do too much. Imagine if you touch on sci-fi, now people are telepathing, they're doing this, they don't know anything about that. The only telepathing they know is what they see on TV, and maybe your story is a different whole genre and they cannot edit that. So I feel like it's just, you know. And also money, there's no money, so you can only get an editor that you can afford, and maybe that
Mm,
editor can only do this much. They only can do this much. And indeed, I got an editor proofreader, but there was still errors. I also checked it 15 times, but there were still errors. So I feel like it's really a lot, like, and it's unexplainable to say, I know there are errors, but I checked and checked. The editor checked and checked, things like that. So there is really no justifying it. Marilyn, you can get married at 16 from me. Just inbox me or check my website. The link is on my bio. Also, writers have a tendency of getting their stands as beta readers. People who worship you won't help. I think they won't help. Yeah, very true. But sometimes that is your manuscript and you're trying to not get it in the wrong hands. Wrong hands. You know, you cannot just approach anybody and everybody and say, can you better read for me? People will share your work, and now your
mm.
published book is everywhere. So it's really very difficult, you know.
I
Yes, I was about to say better readers sometimes are scared to give constructive criticism. Sometimes they are scared, sometimes they don't know how to. For example, I am a better reader, and I always tell people that when it comes to grammar, I am bad. Don't come to me to check your grammar because I don't see grammar, but come with me with plot and storyline, and I will help you on that. So I think you need to know your better readers. Guti, this is somebody's strength. Some people are good at identifying errors, and some people are good at identifying plot holes in a storyline. I'm an irritating editor. So if there's a short story about people switching conscious with another, will you read it? Yeah, I
yes,
think I love
if
that.
you
I
would,
love that.
I would
Yeah,
be
it
very
sounds
interested in that.
interesting.
I would be very, very interesting in that. Just to touch on your point around editing, so there's a lady who reached out to me in my DMs and she sent me her book. But as I started reading, I was like, actually no, please send me the word that you send to your publishers and editors. And I sat on a Friday night reading the entire thing, and I was going through it line by line, and I was like, no, there's no way. Like, these things can't just randomly happen. There needs to be a build up. Like, I don't understand why this character would do this. Like, for example, girl was breaking up with her sugar daddy, and then she took the sugar daddy's suitcase and loaded the suitcase with food from his fridge. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, why would she do this? You know, as funny as it is, but I don't get the intention behind this. And so after that, she was really great in taking the feedback and also revising the manuscript again. But I also think that readers, from what I've seen, are scared of giving feedback and criticism to
Mm,
authors, which is something that I encourage my book club to do. If
mm,
you review one of our book club sessions, hey, if we don't like a book, some people like a book, like this past meeting. There were people who loved it, there were people who didn't like it. We couldn't reach middle ground because we were
yeah.
just going back and forth. And I enjoy that. I wouldn't like to go into a session where we're all saying, "Oh, it's a great book," and then that's it,
Mm.
and then we don't interrogate the work.
Still on that, I feel like authors, we authors, we get very defensive when it comes to our work. So much that if somebody asks so many questions, people get triggered. So people are now scared to fight with people. And when you say, okay, when you're reading somebody's book and you be like, no, I feel like this is too much. I feel like this should be like this. People get triggered. They'll be like, no, I wanted it to be like this. You'll be like, okay, but I'm coming to you as a reader and I'm giving you feedback, you know? And people get so defensive that people are now trying to keep relationships. You know, a little thing can break up friendships. Now we're fighting over me helping you with your book. So people are like, okay, it's fine. Let's just leave it like that. So I think that is also the case.
I get that, and my stance is that if we don't like a song, we voice it. If we don't like a movie, we voice it. That's a piece of art, right? So writing and books are also piece of art. And if we don't give you feedback, I'm not saying there's this very popular girl on Instagram who took somebody's book and she was like, "Ah, South African right editors again." I'm not saying do that. But we need to give constructive criticism to authors as well, so that your next piece of work is better. And Pumza is actually open to feedback. She says, the feedback
Mm,
helps me become a better writer for my next piece of work. Because if we don't, if we're not honest, if we're not giving honest reviews, you won't develop as an author. And that's why my platforms, if you'll see the book reviews that I do, if I don't like a book, I'm gonna say it. And I'm gonna say why. I won't just say I don't like this book. And I really encourage that within my community to say if something does not resonate with you, say it doesn't, and then why. And what I do in my reviews is I say, I don't like this book because one, two, three, but you go and purchase the book and read it and come back
yeah.
and tell me if you agree or not. If you don't agree, that's great. If you agree, that's also great, but at least then the author has gotten a sale and their work has gotten out there. So me sharing an honest review is not saying don't go
Yeah.
and not read this author's
It's
work.
just
Go and
sharing
read
how
it.
it made you feel and what you think about it.
Yep.
Yeah. Makonko is saying, I'm very scared of that. I criticize everything I read, but I never say it out loud. I am also a critic. And I'm sure people also critique my books, but I do critique and I do see the little things in other people's books that I don't see in my books. But when it comes to other people's books, I can say this and that about it. But I don't say it out loud also because, hey, I'm scared. Delight says, how I take criticism depends on how it's phrased. I think sometimes, Delight, we don't have to nurse each other's feelings when it comes to that because the goal is to make your manuscript perfect. And if we do that, we won't come out with a perfect manuscript. as much as it will hurt, I will say, here, Delight, we need to do this and that. Not that I'm saying change your book, but it's suggestions that we need to talk about and not fight about, things like that. Tumela is saying, I actually prefer reviews, especially because I sometimes think of those who liked it. Ah, Tumelo, you're not finishing your sentences. Better reading needs emotional intelligence. Being polite is so detailed. Reviews help me include what was liked and not liked. Okay. The reason for defense at times is an author can have a good story to tell, but they don't know how to write it. Some authors never improve their writing skill. They just share their stories in their head. Yeah, I actually understand that. And sometimes we just need to tell each other the truth. And I always tell people, if you are my friend, I feel like you would tell me where I'm lacking and help me work on that. But people don't talk. They don't talk. They don't talk. You are going south. People just.
Especially when it's a popular book, right? So I've only met one other person who says they didn't like the Kgomo series. It's just me and her, who can say we don't like it. And I think sometimes when a book is popular and liked by many people, people feel pressure to say, I also like it. You don't like it. You're scared to go against the crowd and say, I didn't like it. And for me, I'm always on my platforms like share your honest thoughts. Let's have a
Yeah.
conversation around it. Art is subjective. We're not all gonna like the same thing. I think you as an author know that when you're writing something, not everybody is going to like it. And that essentially is it. Not everybody in life is going to like you. It is what it is.
Delight is saying you can't tell me my book is trash and expect me to listen to you. Not really. You cannot tell somebody that their book is trash. That is mean. But you can tell them how you feel genuinely. I think we should be allowed to say, I didn't like your book because of A, B, and C. And that shouldn't be an offense. That should be like, okay, this person didn't like, maybe they are not the target market. I feel
Yes.
like, why do we always think that the person has bad intentions? Why don't we take it as, okay, maybe it's not for them? I feel like it all starts with us. Why do you think the other person has has like bad intentions towards you? I feel like not everything is an attack. Not everybody that dislikes your books hates you as an author, things like that. And there's a difference between being mean and being honest. I think there's a thin line between it. You cannot tell somebody your book is trashy. Oh, I'll also fight.
Your
I
hard
also
work.
I will fight. Like, what do you mean? Okay, I think it's time to open questions now. If you have any questions, please send them through. So, do you prefer fiction or non-fiction books?
I really, really,
Cat?
really love. Hi, Cat. Oh, I just love Cat. One of the first people that I met
Cat
on
is
here.
a vibe.
Cat is my nonfiction queen. I am opposite to her. I really, really love fiction, especially African fiction. I really like learning about our stories. I think there's so much you learn about other places. Like I learned about the Biafra War by reading Half of a Yellow Sun. I didn't know there was a war in Nigeria until I read that book. So I think there's a lot of knowledge that can be learned in our stories. And so that's why I enjoy like fiction. I'm not hating on nonfiction, but I want a story. I want to be lost in somebody's world. I want to
Yeah.
know places and characters and I just want to be grabbed.
Delight is asking, mind sharing why you did not enjoy the Shlomo series.
Firstly, I think for me, it was the story itself, right? And then I think not, let me rephrase it and say, I think what I struggled the most with the first book was the writing. There was grammar mistakes and spelling mistakes, and I understand author, indie author, whatnot. For me, that's something that throws me off. Another thing is on every second page there was the bug-eyed brothers, and that for me was just it just put me off. However, I do want to commend the author because I think that series got a lot of people into like reading and actually picking up a book and saying, I'm going to read this book. And I think also it's one of the first few South African stories where people could see themselves in their pages. Maybe they could relate to Klomo and how so I think it was one of those first homegrown stories. But for me, I couldn't really relate. I struggled with the writing. And also another thing, which for me, I was like, was when they became celebrities and now they were being chased down by paparazzi and they were Kardashians. And I was like, not even Queen Bee, not even Banang is chased down like this by paparazzi. I think that's why I struggled with it. And then I moved on to Zandile the Resolute, I think. And then I failed. I just couldn't get through it. But somebody did say that I must start with Naledi His Love and then work my way through the rest of the books. They did say that the writing improves and the story improves. So I might do that. Also, I think another thing was that I started reading the books because of the TV series. So I think I watched the TV series first and then I read the books and then there was that disconnect. But yeah, I didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it.
I also think you didn't enjoy it as much as other people, including me, because some of us so happy, we we I personally, I started reading on Facebook, and on Facebook there were so many grammatical
Mm.
errors. So we didn't quite look into drama. We just loved the local stories, having to relate. Everybody's used to reading Boma, Siltni, Sheldon, things like that. So now we're reading local, and we were so happy. And we still love it even now. So I understand you when you say you didn't enjoy it because I feel like you read it now. Yeah, but one of the
Yes.
things.
And I read
Yeah.
both Zakesum Da and the old canon of writers, and I did drama in high school, and then my drama teacher really taught me how to analyze text, and really break it down and unpack it. Why is the character doing this? There's an intention behind the character walking this way. There's an intention behind what the character is wearing or their name. I think that's also why I'm struggling to like really write a story because I'm just like, why is the character doing this? Why is their name like this? So that's where that's the school of thought that I come from. So when I'm reading, I'm always unpacking and I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? I'm analyzing. So it makes sense. It really does make sense. During that era of Facebook, I was in varsity, so I didn't really read though. I think I read Diary of a Zulu girl or something, because that was big during my time, but I also fell off. It was also on Facebook, I think. It was in a blog. I can't remember.
How different of a person do you think you would be if you weren't a reader?
I think I would know less about the world. There's so much. I haven't traveled much in my life, but there's so much I know about places through books. I've learned so much about Nigeria through reading Nigerian stories. I have
Mm.
created connections with people online that I wouldn't have if I wasn't reading. And I think it just keeps me always engaged, always thinking about situations, scenarios. I think my life would be much different, but I don't think it would be for the better. Did I read Bridgerton? No. Ish.
Understand you. Kat is asking if you've read Bridgerton.
Mm-mm. I struggled with TV series and texts set in medieval times and those old, British. Mm-mm. I just, even the TV series, I didn't watch it. I really struggle. I can't.
I loved Bridgerton so much, especially season one. I loved it. Season two, not so much. Two, three, not so. But season one was a winner for me. I really loved it. Do you DNF books when you're not feeling them? Feeling them?
I really try not to. I'm the person who finishes what they started in life. So even if the book I'm struggling, I will try to finish it. There's only one book that I DNF'd with my chest and I said, I'm not gonna finish this book. And it was S for Samora. Yo, like it was a non-fiction book. And I would read it and then I would fall asleep. I would read it and then I would fall asleep. So I decided, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to finish this book. And so I stopped reading it and I gave it back to the owner.
What do you mean you gave it back?
I had borrowed it from a friend. And so I knew I wasn't going
Okay,
to finish it. So I was like, hey, Nick, here's your book back. Thank you. I'm struggling.
I can't deal. Ah,
Maybe when I'm older and wiser. Kat, why was I expecting that? Did you read that book, Kat?
I'm sure she read it. She really is more into nonfiction that I've noticed.
She is.
Do you guys have any more questions? We have less than 20 minutes before we wrap up. Any more questions for our reader?
Now, Catherine, I'd like to ask you, what are some books that you've struggled to get through?
So far, it's The Children of Blood and Bone.
Okay.
I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish it. I don't know why, but I just wasn't feeling it. I don't know why, but I did read more than 200 pages. But I noticed that it was slipping me into a reading slump. I was like, no, I cannot do this to myself. I usually do not also DNF books, but I just wasn't feeling it. It was, I don't know, slow for me. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it. But I will try it again in the future.
You know, the thing with fantasy books is that, and sci-fi, is that they have to build the world first. So I think that's why sometimes it's slow, because they have to like describe the setting. You have to establish it in your head. So I think that's why. Delight is asking me my thoughts on audiobooks. I love audiobooks. However, I need it to be not read by one person. Oh, wait, let me say this. I need the audiobook, the actual book, to not have a lot of characters. Because audiobooks, most of the time, are read by one person. So if a book has a lot of characters and it's only been read by one person, even if they change their voice, I get lost. So I wanted to start listening to Tomorrow I Become a Woman. And I stopped it because I was like, there's so many characters. I don't know who's who. I don't know who's saying what to who. I'm getting lost. Let me just get the physical book and I'll read it myself. But if it's like one or two characters, like a manuscript found in Accra by Paulo Coelho, when it was being read by that person, I could get through the book because it was only like one, two characters and one voice. So I really love audiobooks because I think when you're driving, sometimes when you're running or when you're just sitting, you can listen to the audiobook and do something else. So you can also just like keep reading through the
Distracted, and I don't think I my listening is that good that I would listen to every word. I don't know, but I will try them one day. Dumela is saying you mentioned you have books in Setswana and Sesotho. Which ones?
So off the top of my head, I don't know because I've just had a 50 Rand book sale. Some of them were bought, so I don't know what I have left. But what you can do is on my profile, click on the link in my bio and then view the current catalog that I have. I'm gonna look into titles as well into next month. So I'm always like adding new books and taking new books off the catalog. So please view them. You might find some interesting titles that you didn't think you'd want to read.
So, what gets you out of a reading slump?
I think I'm currently in one. Hey, like I need a book that's gonna grab me. Like a book that I won't be able to think about anything else but getting through the book. Something like The Death of Vivek Oji, something like The Secret Lives of Baba Shegi's Wives, something, that's got a little bit of drama, is well written. It's going to grab me and make me think, oh my word, this writing is amazing. That's what I need at the moment. And I've been picking up some books and then I pick it up and I'm like, yo, this book is going to need my attention. Like, it needs my brain. Let me put it down. So I think for me right now, a light read, like,
Lovely. Which book is your fighter?
there's a book called A Season of Crimson Blossom. It's set in Nigeria, in Jos, Nigeria. It's about a Muslim widow who starts an affair with a local gangster. I really enjoyed it. I think that book could get me out of a reading slump. Another one is if an Egyptian cannot speak English. That, because of the book title, it grabbed me. And then I saw the cover and I was like, oh, this book is so beautiful. And it was an audiobook. So I listened to the audiobook because we don't have South African copies. The publishers didn't pick it up from the international publisher. So I had to ask somebody coming to America to come with it. And lastly, A Broken People's Playlist by Chimeka Garrix will always have my heart. After we end this live, search on TikTok A Broken People's Playlist.
I will check it out. So, do you want vernacular translated in books?
I don't want it translated, and I think we shouldn't. This comment actually touches on my point to say when we read books from overseas and they have their own vernacular in it, or Nigerian books and they have pidgin English, it's not translated. So I think it's on us as readers to the Rado Park. And oh my word, that book. Like every couple of chapters, there's 2 pages written in Afrikaans, and that's because it's colored women speaking to each other by the wall. It's neighbors speaking to each other, and they're skinnering, they're gossiping. And that cannot be translated into English because they're skinnering in Afrikaans. And because I understand Afrikaans, I'm like, oh my gosh, actually, this is pure gold. It cannot be translated. It has to stay like this. So yeah, no, I don't want to translate it.
What's more important, watertight plot or character development?
I would like well-developed characters because even if we have a watertight plot, if the characters are not developed, we're not gonna care about them. We're gonna think about the story and not about the characters. And I think I don't know if for you, Catherine, if this is important, but I think as an author, you want your characters to be memorable. So when they think about your book, they think about the character, right? When we think about the Hlomo series, we think about Hlomo, we think about Mkhele, we think about the brothers, and we know them because they were developed into proper characters. If they were not, we just know the story.
Yeah, very true. So, what is the one thing you wish authors could do less in their books?
Sure. I think sometimes there's a trend where like a batch of books around the same topic come out. I think that is one thing that I wish authors could do less. And then sometimes I feel like there's an unnecessary, and I saw this with old writers from the old canon, like the 1990s, 1980s, 1970s, where they would introduce so many characters and want to give every character a backstory, and every character must have an action to play in that book. And then the book becomes this thick. But now you're trying to remember all of these characters and why are they important. And sometimes they're not, you know? So I think, yeah, that there was a book called, what was it? Spam Donor. Oh, like I spent on Sunday afternoon getting through that book. And then every character that was introduced.
108 pages of some sort.
And now
Like
remember, like you're trying to
so thick,
remember,
thick.
yo, it was so thick. It was so thick, you know. So I think for me, really, like it goes back to that editing thing, right? And things mustn't just happen. There's another book that I read called The Soft Landing, and I was so happy to read it because it was like another queer story about it was really about it was released in the last 2 years, and I was excited. But as I was reading the book, I was like, how these guys go from being described in their high school and then suddenly they love us. There's no build up to how did we realize that we actually have feelings for each other? How did we
Yeah.
approach that? That's what I would have liked to see from the book because there are not a lot of books around that. You know what Pumza did with Unspoken Truth? But there
Mm.
was a build up, you know, there was a build up, and you could feel, you knew that they loved each other and a relationship was coming out of this. So it goes back to that editing point. Edit, edit, edit.
For me, I think what I wish authors could do less is doing too much to a character that it loses meaning. Like the character goes through so much that it loses meaning. You know, the person gets abused, assaulted, hit by a car, everything wrong that could happen to a person. I'm like,
Why?
why? Don't like make everything that a character goes through have meaning and
Yes.
contribute to the storyline. You know, the character gets beat by the boyfriend, by the husband. I'm like, yay. For me,
Yes.
that's it. Like, as much as you want to show us the pain that the person has gone through, there is no need to break them like to pieces. Sometimes it's really a turn off. It's really a turn
Mm.
off. As much as some people love a good cry when reading, but don't overdo it because there are
Yes.
some people in that situation and that makes them cringe to look at that,
Mm.
they'll be
Mm.
like, especially how writers write about, for example, sexual assault. Sometimes you look at it and be like, hi, book guys, sometimes you be doing too much. We know that it happens, but don't overdo it. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
You are
don't.
making sense. I think Piggy Boys Blues by Nakane Torre, there was a similar scene, but the way in which it happens, you're reading like 4 pages of gibberish, but then at the end you're like, oh, this is what has been happening this whole time, you know? I think that's one of the few examples where it was written different.
What trope do you find irritating?
I don't really have tropes, man. The sugar daddy thing, I'm done with. I'm not reading any more stories about sugar daddies because
You
nothing ever
see,
good
sugar
comes out
daddy,
of.
you close the book.
Ah, bless her, sugar daddy. Young girl meets an older man because she doesn't want to go work for herself. She gets spoiled, and then all goes wrong. No, 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 no. I'm done. I want to read other stories. We have other stories. Let's write about other stories. We really have other stories.
Dumelo is asking, do you sample books on Amazon's? On Amazon, sorry.
No, I'm not a big ebook reader. I mean, I read an ebook here and there, but I'm not really an ebook reader. I want to see my progress as I'm like reading, and I'm like, okay, we're getting there, we're getting there, we're getting there. So with Ebooks, I don't have a Kindle. I only have an iPad. Well, I only have an iPad, but the screen is huge, so it's not really easy to read. But I read The Hunger Games on my phone when I was in varsity, so I just want the physical book.
What's your take on overhyped books?
I try to avoid them as much as I can until the hype dies down, and then I go read the book and see what the hype was about. But in
Also
most
like
cases,
that.
yeah,
I
in
I feel
most,
like if everybody is talking about it, it influences my
yeah.
something to enjoy that. Even TV series, I always wait until the hype dies down and then I watch it on my own without anybody ruining it for me.
I think for me, overhyped books in the past have always disappointed me. This Open Water that we read for book club, when it came out, TikTok was all talking about it. The only hyped up book that I was like, okay, I'm not disappointed, was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I really enjoyed that book. I enjoyed the writing. The plot wasn't anything different or new or anything, different, but I just really enjoyed the book. I think it was a well put together book.
Hmm. Do you underestimate a book if it is a certain volume?
Like in the number of pages or what? No, I don't. Actually, even the thinner the book, the better these days. I don't have capacity for a thick book. But no, I don't underestimate the book. Just grab me with your writing, with your story. You have me as a reader. Once you have me as a reader, I'm gonna tell my TikTok friends about it. They're also gonna want the book. So yeah.
Delight is saying Seven Husbands is beautiful. I've heard so many beautiful reviews. I've never even heard one person saying they didn't love that book. I'm going to add it to my Amazon.
Chef's kiss.
I'm going to add, and not even one person that is like, I didn't enjoy this book. Like every review that I see.
I mean, you start with Seven Husbands, you're like, who has seven husbands? And then you start reading about how each husband contributed to Evelyn's life. And for me, it's the writing. It was the writing it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best. It wasn't like Nigerian, but it was nice to get through. And the world, how it was built up around them, was also very well detailed and well done. So yeah, I think yes, definitely get it for your Amazon cart. Clear it.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your engagement and thank you, Kgosi, for joining us. We had a lovely time getting to know you and your TBR. To me, you are late. We are wrapping up. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Looking forward to seeing those reviews on your page. And for all those who want new books and pre-loved books, follow Kgosi and look at his catalog on his bio. I'm sure you will find very cheap books. We are all for. Do not forget to pre-order my book. The link is in my bio. And yeah, see you in the streets, in the in the timeline streets. Thank you so much, Kgosi.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine. Yes, I need to get your new book. I need to
Please.
get married at 16.
Okay, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.